This is a big day. Fyre Festival 2 tickets are officially on sale. Fyre Festival 2 is coming back to the Caribbean.
For a few strange days in December 2016, the internet was obsessed with an orange square. No text, no explanation, just a blank orange tile posted by over 400 of the world's biggest celebrities and influencers, all at the exact same time. Within 24 hours, more than 300 million people had seen it. And when you clicked the link, you got a video that looked like something out of a billionaire's fever dream. Private jets, supermodels on yachts, champagne on the beach, a private island once owned by Pablo Escobar, and a promise that you, yes, you could be there. The name? Fyre Festival, the Coachella of the Caribbean, the most exclusive music event in history. It was a marketing stunt so perfect, it didn't just sell out in days. It rewired what people thought a festival could be. But within months, that orange square would turn into the internet's favorite joke, a legal disaster, and a federal fraud case. And at the center of it all, a man who could sell anything, even if it didn't exist. This is how Billy McFarland fooled the world twice. It's not often that an image with no words at all can hijack the entire internet, but in December 2016, that's exactly what happened. One moment, Instagram looked normal. The next, your feed was flooded with the same thing. A flat orange square posted by Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, Hailey Baldwin, Emily Ratajkowski, and hundreds more of the most followed people on the planet. No caption explaining what it was, just a tag, #Fyre Festival. The link led to a video shot on a remote Bahamian island, and it was dangerously seductive. Supermodels sprinting into turquoise water, private jets slicing through clouds, champagne bottles exploding under the sun, clips of people laughing, dancing, kissing. Cut together like an ad for a lifestyle you didn't even know you wanted until that moment. A man's voice promised the most exclusive festival in history, on an island once owned by Pablo Escobar. 3 days of music, gourmet food, and unbelievable access to some of the world's most famous artists. No one knew the lineup, no one knew the schedule, no one cared. Because in the age of Instagram, the promise wasn't what you'd see on stage. It was who you'd be in the crowd. Within 48 hours, the cheapest tickets, which were for $500, sold out. The top-tier VIP packages, $250,000, and they included everything from a private villa to a yacht with its own chef. To most people scrolling through their phones, it looked like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. To one man, it was something else entirely. The perfect con, and his name was Billy McFarland. Before the orange square, before the island, before the lawsuits, there was Billy. Born in New Jersey in 1991, he was the son of real estate developers, but Billy's real talent wasn't in property. It was in selling ideas. Even as a kid, he was hustling. At 13, he launched his first company, an online outsourcing service that connected clients to graphic designers overseas. He built the website himself, emailed strangers cold, and started collecting small payments through PayPal. It wasn't a million-dollar empire, but it gave Billy a taste of something he'd never forget. That rush of convincing someone to buy into something you created from scratch. By 19, he dropped out of Bucknell University to chase that rush full-time. His first post-college play was a startup called Spling, a social networking site for sharing and curating links. He pitched it as the future of how people discover content. It wasn't. Within months, the venture collapsed. No real user base, no revenue model. But Billy had already learned his first big lesson. A failed product doesn't matter as long as you look like a success. By 2013, he was ready for something flashier. He launched Magnacies, a black metal membership card aimed at ambitious, status-hungry millennials. For $250 a year, members got exclusive perks, VIP access to concerts, private dinners with celebrities, luxury travel packages, and a members-only townhouse in Manhattan. The catch? The Magnacies card wasn't a real credit card at all. Billy's team literally copied the magnetic strip from your existing bank card onto the heavy black one, so you could swipe it like the real thing. At first, the illusion worked. The sleek design, the velvet rope branding, it made members feel important. Billy booked parties with Ja Rule, Rick Ross, and other big names. Social media posts showed champagne, rooftop events, and perfectly curated exclusivity. But underneath the polish, complaints piled up. Trips were canceled with no warning. Event tickets never arrived. Perks advertised on the website didn't exist, and some members claimed they were charged for things they never ordered. Magnacies wasn't making real money, just enough to keep the lights on and fund Billy's image as the young CEO who always had the next big thing. But the cracks were widening. By 2016, Billy was desperate for something bigger, louder, impossible to ignore. Something that could drown out the bad press and put his name in a different league entirely. That something would be a music festival so exclusive it would make Magneses look like a warm-up act. And to pull it off, he was going to need a partner with star power. Enter Ja Rule. When Billy McFarland and Ja Rule started mapping out their festival, the location wasn't just important, it was everything. If you're selling the most exclusive event in history, you can't put it in a regular venue. It had to be somewhere nobody had been, somewhere that screamed luxury, danger, and once-in-a-lifetime status. On a trip to the Bahamas, they found it. A stretch of sand and palm trees in the Exuma chain called Norman's Cay. It was beautiful, isolated, and it came with a built-in legend. It had once belonged to Pablo Escobar, the most notorious drug lord in history. To Billy, this was marketing gold. He could practically see the headlines, "Party on Pablo's Island." The island's owners agreed to lease it to him, but with one condition: do not, under any circumstances, use Pablo Escobar's name in any promotion. And then came the Fyre Festival announcement video. The first line? On an island once owned by Pablo Escobar. The second the owners saw it, the deal was dead. Norman's Cay was gone. Now Billy had a problem. The festival wasn't just tied to a location. It was tied to the image of that location. And losing it meant losing the dream he'd already sold to the world. With time running out, the team scrambled to find a replacement. The only viable option was a patch of land on Great Exuma, part of a half-built resort with no running water, no sewage system, and no real housing. But in Billy's mind, this wasn't a setback. It was just another challenge to sell his way through. If the location wasn't ready, he'd make it look ready, at least online. And for that, he was about to assemble one of the most effective, dangerous marketing campaigns in internet history. Billy McFarland knew something most festival organizers didn't. You don't need a lineup to sell tickets. You don't even need a stage. All you need is a fantasy so intoxicating people will ignore every missing detail until it's too late. So while other festivals were booking bands and hiring stage crews, Billy booked something else entirely: supermodels. Late in 2016, he chartered a jet, not to move equipment, but to fly Bella Hadid, Hailey Baldwin, Emily Ratajkowski, and a hand-picked squad of Instagram royalty to a sun-bleached patch of Bahamian sand. It wasn't the island they'd use for the festival. It wasn't even ready for human guests. But through a camera lens, none of that mattered. Jet skis carved through turquoise water. Champagne foamed and sprayed into the air like liquid gold. Bonfires blazed as the most photographed women in the world laughed and danced in slow motion, their skin glowing under the Bahamian sunset. The video wasn't just a promo, it was a weapon. Every shot designed to bypass logic and hit you right in the brain's FOMO switch. And then came the masterstroke. In December 2016, over 400 influencers, at the exact same moment, posted a single plain orange square on Instagram. No captions, no explanations. Just a single tag, #Fyre Festival. Click it, and you saw that dream sequence. Jets, yachts, beaches, models, paired with a promise, the most exclusive festival in history, on an island once owned by Pablo Escobar. It was irresistible. Within 48 hours, the cheapest $500 tickets were gone. The $250,000 VIP packages, offering private yachts, luxury villas, and unbelievable access to celebrities, vanished too. Billy spared no expense on the hype. Kendall Jenner alone was paid $275,000 for one post. In total, the influencer campaign cost $5.2 million. And it worked. People weren't just buying tickets. They were buying the identity of someone who could be there. But behind the curtain, the island wasn't ready. There were no villas, no infrastructure. The glossy dream was just pixels on a screen, an illusion that Billy treated as the real product. And like any good magician, he was about to learn the oldest rule in the book. The longer you stretch an illusion, the harder it hits when reality rips it apart. On Instagram, Fyre Festival still looked like heaven on earth. In reality, it was starting to feel like a ticking bomb. Inside the planning meetings, the tone wasn't champagne and sunsets, it was triage. Every email thread read like an emergency dispatch. Housing? Nowhere close to finished. 100 luxury villas promised online? Didn't exist. Power supply? Barely enough for a small hotel, let alone thousands of guests with cameras, lights, and sound systems. One consultant finally broke the spell, looking Billy dead in the eye. You need to cancel this event. You can't pull this off in time. Billy didn't cancel. He sold more tickets. The illusion had to keep moving because if it stopped, people might look too closely and see the cracks. Meanwhile, the music lineup, the thing most festivals announce first, was unraveling. Blink 182 hadn't been paid. Other acts stopped responding altogether. For a company supposedly selling a talent booking app, the fact that they had almost no talent booked was more than ironic. It was fatal. And then came the money problem. Ticket sales had been impressive, but the cash wasn't even close to covering the ballooning costs, now estimated at over $42 million. The little money they had left was being burned on marketing stunts, last-minute flights, and rentals that solved almost nothing. Billy's solution? A brand new revenue stream, the Fyre bands. Guests were told these wristbands would be the only way to pay on the island. Load them up now, Billy said, thousands of dollars each for cashless convenience. It worked. Some attendees dropped tens of thousands onto their bands. In reality, there would be almost nothing to spend it on. On the ground in the Bahamas, contractors watched in disbelief as deadlines flew past. Supplies ran out, tempers ran high, and every passing day felt like another nail in the coffin. But Billy, he stayed in sales mode, pitching investors, calming influencers, and repeating the same line to his own exhausted staff. We'll figure it out. No one knew it yet, but the figuring out was over. The cracks weren't cracks anymore, they were fractures, and the countdown clock was almost at 0. April 27th, 2017. The day the dream was supposed to become reality. From Miami, the first wave of guests boarded flights expecting a party in the sky, a Fyre-branded private jet straight to paradise. What they got instead was a cramped commercial 737 with no music, no champagne, no welcome. When they landed on Great Exuma, there was no festival check-in, no red carpet greeting. They were herded onto repurposed school buses and driven somewhere. The drivers weren't even sure where to take them. The private island they'd seen in the promo video? Gone. Instead, guests were dropped at a gravel lot lined with rows of FEMA disaster relief tents, some still wet from a recent storm. Inside the tents, sagging mattresses, no linens, no air conditioning. Outside, a mountain of unguarded luggage dumped straight out of shipping containers, with attendees digging through the pile in the dark to find their bags. And the food? A styrofoam container holding a single slice of processed cheese on wheat bread with a sad pile of lettuce, the image that would soon go viral and become the symbol of the disaster. One attendee posted it with the caption, "Literally paid thousands to be in the Hunger Games." Panic set in fast. People started fighting over tents. Others grabbed mattresses and tried to find dry ground. Some decided to leave immediately, but flights back to Miami were already overbooked. Behind the scenes, staff were overwhelmed. There wasn't enough food, water, or medical support, and there was no clear plan for the thousands still en route to the island. Billy? He was still there, telling people it was just a few hiccups and they'd turn it around. But the illusion was gone. The internet was already watching. And within hours, Fyre Festival would go from luxury dream to global punchline. It took less than a day for Fyre Festival to implode online. Photos of rain-soaked tents and frantic guests hit Twitter. Instagram stories showed people clawing through the luggage pile, searching for their bags. And then came the image that would bury Billy McFarland's dream once and for all. A styrofoam box. Inside, 2 slices of bread, a single square of processed cheese, and a heap of undressed lettuce. That picture, posted by attendee Trevor DeHaas, detonated across the internet. It became the symbol of the festival's collapse. Luxury turned into lunchroom despair. Within hours, #Fyre Festival was trending worldwide. But it wasn't sympathy filling the feed, it was ridicule. One tweet read, "Fyre Festival is like if Coachella and Lord of the Flies had a baby, and then abandoned it." The memes were merciless, side-by-sides of the glossy promo video next to the muddy reality. Photoshopped cheese sandwiches with $12,000 price tags. Influencers' Instagram captions reworked into brutal jokes. While the internet laughed, things on the island got worse. Flights were canceled or oversold. Guests were stranded at the tiny Exuma airport with no food or water. Some were even locked inside a terminal overnight, trapped in sweltering heat until they could be flown out. CNN, BBC, and every major outlet ran the story. The luxury festival had become a global embarrassment in less than 48 hours. And yet, Billy McFarland was still telling cameras, next year will be better. By the end of the weekend, the brand was toxic, guests were furious, and the lawsuits were already being drafted. What had started as the biggest influencer marketing success of the decade was now one of the fastest public downfalls in modern business. And for Billy, the nightmare was just beginning. When the last plane left Great Exuma, the tent stood empty, the stages unfinished, and the brand destroyed. But the real trouble for Billy McFarland was still ahead. Within weeks, multiple class action lawsuits hit the courts, one demanding $100 million in damages. Vendors and contractors claimed they'd never been paid. Bahamian workers said they'd poured weeks of labor into the event and were left with nothing. And then the FBI got involved. What they found wasn't just mismanagement, it was fraud. Billy had pitched investors on a thriving business, claiming Fyre Media had processed thousands of celebrity bookings worth millions in revenue. In reality, the app had handled about 60 bookings total, bringing in just over $55,000 according to DOJ filings. He sent fake bank statements, fabricated loan documents, inflated numbers in meetings. Between 2016 and 2017, he'd convinced investors to pour $26 million into a company that was mostly smoke and mirrors. And when that money wasn't enough, he tapped a new revenue stream, the Fyre bans. He told guests to preload them with thousands for on-island spending. They complied, some loading $30,000 or more. The problem? There was almost nothing to buy. To prosecutors, it was clear. Fyre Festival wasn't just a failure, it was a deliberate deception. In June 2017, Billy McFarland was arrested and charged with wire fraud. Out on bail, facing up to 20 years in prison, he did what most people in his position would never dare. He started another scam. For most people, facing federal charges and the possibility of 20 years in prison is a life-ending wake-up call. You keep your head down, you talk to your lawyer, you wait for the hammer to fall. Billy McFarland, he decided to start another business. In 2018, out on bail, living in a Manhattan hotel, Billy quietly launched something called NYC VIP Access. It sounded legit, an ultra-exclusive concierge service promising tickets to events so hard to get you couldn't even imagine being in the room. The Met Gala, Coachella, the Victoria's Secret fashion show, Burning Man. The problem? Billy had no connections to any of them. The tickets didn't exist. And the sales pitch? He didn't go hunting for new customers. He went right back to his old ones. The same people he'd already burned at Fyre Festival. Some of them incredibly bit. They thought maybe, just maybe, this was Billy's attempt to make things right. Instead, it was another trap. Money wired, promises made. Tickets, nowhere. One victim told prosecutors, "I thought he was making it up to us. Instead, he scammed us again." The whole time, the FBI was watching. They had the emails. They had the bank records. They had him. In March 2018, they hit him with a fresh wave of charges, a second round of federal fraud plus money laundering. His bail was revoked. That October, Billy McFarland stood in a federal courtroom and heard his sentence. 6 years in prison and $26 million in restitution. Most people's story would end there. But for Billy, this was just the intermission. Billy McFarland walked out of prison in March 2022 after serving less than 4 years. He still owed $26 million in restitution, and he still had one thing the world couldn't forget, the Fyre Festival name. Instead of running from it, Billy leaned in. In August 2023, he announced Fyre Festival 2, a comeback he claimed would be bigger and better. Tickets went on sale before there was a venue, lineup, or even a clear plan. The first batch started at $499 and, according to Billy, sold out quickly. But cracks appeared immediately. Rumors of possible locations spread. Isla Mujeres, Playa del Carmen, even parts of the Caribbean. Local officials publicly said no such event had been approved. By April 2025, Billy admitted the obvious. Fyre Festival 2 was postponed indefinitely. He promised the ticket money was sitting in a secure account and would be refunded or applied to a future event. But with no festival in sight, those funds effectively sat in limbo. And then came his next move. Not to stage the festival, but to sell it. In July 2025, the Fyre Festival brand, its trademarks, social media accounts, intellectual property, and even unreleased documentary footage was listed on eBay. The auction drew 175 bids from 42 bidders. Billy livestreamed the closing moments as the final price hit $245,300. When the virtual gavel fell, he sighed. Damn, this sucks. It's so low. The most infamous festival in history was now just another online auction lot, sold to the highest bidder. Not with a bang, not with music, just the sound of an eBay timer running out.